And welcome to Sheena Inc.'s celebration for International Women's Month. Yesterday was International Women's Day, and our celebration of awesome women, honor, and respect. I'm Rose Woodruff. I'm your moderator for today, and I really want to thank you for coming out because I know there were quite a few competing events today. So thank you for coming inside on this beautiful day and talking about some really important stuff. And so I would like to introduce Lisa Polgar. She's on the board of Sheena Inc., and she's also with Pan American Pan African Association, PAPA. And Lisa's going to do our opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for having me today. And thank you for allowing me to be part of this wonderful event. My name is Lisa Polgar. I'm Associate Director of the Pan American Pan African Association, which is an NGO in consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. And we've been participating with Sheena since 2004. I just can't imagine how time has passed us by so quickly. For quite a few years, we've organized events with Sheena at the United Nations to bring attention, particularly to the issue of violence against women. And one of the primary concerns has been violence against women by women, which is an issue that really has not been addressed internationally as it should be. In this Women's History Month, I'm so proud to be part of this. Women's History, you wonder why do we have to celebrate Women's History Month? Why is it so important? Why is it that we can't just celebrate women all year long? Well, if you select one month, it will focus the attention on the issues that are affecting women. And at the United Nations next week, there will be the Commission on the Status of Women will be meeting, and they will be 6,000 women from all over the world who will be descending at the UN and to really bring attention to what's going on as far as women's issues. The movement for the rights of women has been a progressive one. Back in 1995, when we had the Beijing conference, women's issues was on the bottom of the totem pole. And I think that we've come a long way. Today, we have the Me Too movement, where women are just saying enough is enough. We're not going to put up with it. I was so pleased that in 2017, we participated in the elections in Prince William County. It's the first time that we had 28 women who ran and won to be delegates in the state of Virginia. And that happened because women got together. Women worked together, and women were able to produce and get results. They never imagined that a Hispanic woman could win. It was the first time that an African American woman won in the county of Stafford. So there's some amazing milestones that we have arrived at, and but there's still a long ways to go. There's a report that the UN has issued 2030, we have the agenda for 2030, which addresses the issues of sustainable development goals. And there are 49 countries in the world that have no legislation on domestic violence. There are 45 countries have no legislation that specifically addresses sexual harassment. And there's 37 countries exempt rape perpetrators from prosecution if they are married to or subsequently marry the victim. So we have a long ways to go. And with that, I'm again pleased to be here, and I pass it on to my dear friend, Jessica Mushala.
What does 2018 Women's Month mean to me? It means I can stand up to you even if you think you are right. It means I have the voice. I can speak up, even if it means I might isolate some of you. Because if you do right, you never know the next generation. We might actually change the beliefs and the mentality which keep following us generation to generation. So sometimes in our debate, I tend to differ with my two sisters. On my left side, this is my sister from the other village. She has been to Tanzania 3 times, and she has seen what it means to be a Tanzanian woman in the village, not urban. And also she has seen what to be a Tanzanian woman in urban like city like Dar es Salaam, Arusha, where we kind of portray and try to copy the Western culture. On my right side, that's my sister who understands what it means to be recognized for your efforts. She's been with Sheena Inc., as she said, for the past 15, 16 years. We have seen a lot. She's never given up on what we do. Sheena touches lives one person at a time. Today, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what were your ideas and your vision and your resolution. How do we prevent violence against women by women? Whenever we talk about violence, everybody thinks it's a man against a woman, beat me up, take my money away, kind of kick, leave me on the street, and I come back for more. But as an African, and in tune of what we're addressing this year at the CSW 62, you cannot talk about empowering a rural woman and girl without addressing the culture. And you cannot address the culture, especially African culture, without addressing violence against women by women. What do I mean by that? Let's look at circumcision. Envastura. Who really circumcise the woman? Is it a man? Who emphasizes to a young girl that in order for you to feel you're a woman and for you to get a very ideal husband, somehow they have to chop part of your body. But yet we stand up in the United Nations as a voice for those young girls, and we pretend as if men forces our hand to do that. It comes back to the culture. We need to educate each other. We need to reach out. We need to explain. Let's talk about date rape. And I go towards the American system. When you talk to an African, I think it was 2013, 14, we actually had a parallel event about this topic. Can a woman rape a man? It was very interesting, okay? Most of the Americans said yes. Most of the Africans said, all right? And actually one of the men said, hey, I wish someone can rape me. It was so heated, but then that shows you the difference in culture and what we consider. You went beyond the boundaries. So for an African mother, a girl to come to a mother and say, I was raped, I went out with a boy and he raped me, they are looking at it from a different perspective. Where did he rape you? Were you coming from the movie, going home, or did you go to his house for a cup of coffee, then he raped you? So we need to teach our girls to know where to be and how to defend themselves. And they should be able to draw the line of this way it goes. That's the only way we'll be able to empower a woman and girl in the rural villages of any country, whether here, whether in Africa, whether Bolivia, Russia. We have seen a lot about the prostitution. Majority of them are from Russia, and they're supposed to be these white people with all this power. So when you look at the news, you ask yourself, what's the impact on my child, who maybe they're caught in two cultures? They don't know if they're American, if they're African, or if they're in between. I believe it is our responsibility, all of us here, to reach out, to attend meetings, to have exposure, to hear people, and really learn other cultures. That's why in Sheena, or at Sheena Family, we believe in bringing different cultures from different countries. Why? Because together we can make a difference in empowering a rural woman and girl. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to talk a little bit about Time's Up. We've talked about people have heard about the Me Too movement. And the Me Too movement, that was, basically having, being sexually harassed or having unwanted sexual advances, whether they were by your boss or someone else. Time's Up seems to be more geared towards sexual harassment in the workplace. But think about the words, time's up. Why are we using that? If we look at what it means, time's up is previously, culturally, it was acceptable for men to sexually harass women. In the as the U.S., we try to take the lead in providing rights to people around the world, right? We're a champion of everybody's rights. Yay, we're the U.S. Often, I know when I travel in Tanzania, people assume the UN is taking whatever cultural norms are here in the U.S. and trying to plant them elsewhere. And yet, here in the U.S., we have the struggle too. The difference is our struggle seems to be about 30 years ahead of your struggle back in Tanzania. The gender norms that are there, or what we had, actually make that 70 years. The gender norms that are there in Tanzania today are the gender norms we had in the 1950s, where if you were a rural woman who didn't drive, didn't have a car, didn't have money, and you lived out in the middle of nowhere, the only rights you had were what you could enforce. Which, other than what your minister would do for you, that was almost nothing. And that's what I see when we go out to Pemba. The rural women in Pemba only have the rights that they can get enforced. And if your husband doesn't let you walk to town, how can you enforce your rights? So, coming back to Me Too here in the U.S. is taking a cultural leap forward in women's rights. For the first time since the suffragettes marched for voting rights in our country, we have American women collectively saying, we are going to make a cultural change today. We're not just going to wait for it to happen. Starting today, we as a culture say sexual harassment is not acceptable anywhere in our culture. And so, as we bring our panelists up today, I invite all of you and them also to think about what are the things that we have to say no more to? What are the things that we as mothers, okay, we have the most important job in the world. As mothers, we are the very first educators of our children. And it doesn't matter, when we look at who is perpetrating violence against women, whether it's a man or a woman, the person who can most stop it is the mother who's training that person as a young child. What are we teaching our young children? So when we talk about violence against women by women, What is it that we want each other? We want our women to be teaching both our young men and our young women to empower them to stand up for themselves and lead fulfilled lives free of fear of being abused or hurt. So today we have several panelists, and we have Mrs. Elvira Williams. We have, is Mrs. Melipula here? Come on up, have a seat. We have Ms. Felicia Asongwe, who's up here. Yeah, and Mrs. Olivia Stallings. And we'll just bring another chair up for you too. What we're going today is give each, and then we'll open up a discussion, taking questions from the audience and having them answer it. And I'm going to actually start with Mrs. Elvira Williams. She's kind of a matriarch to the Mushala clan and many of the people here. So I'd be honored if you would start.
Okay. Thank you very much. I am probably the senior person here, and I am very pleased to be here to give support to my daughter just ran out, but there's another one here. There's Primrose. Oh, I see Jessica's hiding. Yeah, we've been a part of the Mushala family for almost 50 years. My husband went to Tanzania to work with the Ministry of Health. We took 4 little children at that time, and we were there for several years in Mwanza. So I consider myself first a Tanzanian. Asanteni. Nashukuru. Okay. My experience in Tanzania for more than 44 years, almost 50 years, has been a very exciting one. We lived in Mwanza for the first few years, and then we came back, started an organization, AHEAD Inc., Adventures in Health, Education and Agricultural Development, Inc., of which I'm the executive director. We only work in rural areas, and we work in rural areas because this is where the foundation of any country is. This is where the people live. And we have had tremendous experiences. People who go with us as volunteers, and people who have been going at least 40 years with us as volunteers, are very surprised when they realize that we don't stay in Dar es Salaam, we're not in Mwanza, we live in the villages with the people. And this is how you get to know people. I am very, very supportive of rural women. Rural women have a lot more going on than we realize. They are the first teachers of their children. Of course, they are mothers first. They bring children into the world, and they're with children longer than anybody else. The thing that I think we need to realize is that we have to, first of all, encourage and empower each other. And I'm not just talking about Tanzania, it's the same here. Women can be like crabs in a bucket, wherever you are, at whatever level. I've taught at the university for many years. I've worked with people at the lowest level. I've worked in facilities, hospitals, etc. And we see, and this happens now more with people at a higher level, educated people, than I see with the lower level. When one person gets up, they pull people down. We don't want to see our sisters get any higher than we. And we need to realize that, as my husband says, and he's the biggest supporter of women, yes, the man is the head, but the woman is the neck, and the head cannot turn unless the neck moves it. And we have to realize that in all situations. Those of us who've worked in corporate situations, who's the one who runs the company? It's not the man, it's his secretary. Those are the people under him who do all of the work. So what we have to do is encourage each other to come together. And that Me Too movement really is long overdue. But I certainly do admire all of those women who have come together. We need to start first realizing that we are somebody, that I am somebody. We start first empowering ourselves. Then we give support to all of the women around us. The other thing most of you don't realize, because you've not lived with rural women, unless some of you have come from rural areas and know the country. I'm speaking mostly of these people who've been in urban areas and too many in suburban areas. Rural women are brilliant. They have skills and understanding about things that you'd never imagine. I have learned so much from rural women. Basically, how you use charcoal to clean the to clean the toilets, to get the smells out of the area. People don't realize that people understand and they know. They teach their children, but what we need to do is to work together to empower them, to let them know those skills need to go beyond what they know and what they're teaching their children. The one thing that they have to do is really give more focus to how they support their boys. Because the man, of course, feels that the sons are the ones who should have priority. But for the first 5 or 6 or 8 years, the mother has to teach that son that he has to respect his sister, he has to respect his mother. That's very, very critical. So what we need to do is look at giving support to women, to organizing. And all of our projects for the last 32 years, 35 years have been in rural areas. All of them have been in rural areas. And we have understood the need, first for providing support for infants and young people who die from preventable diseases. And a few years ago, people from UNICEF were looking for a head because we sent a report in saying that we had in Shinyanga immunized 95% of children 5 and below. They were looking for us to say, you've made a mistake. The persons who've done the calculation, you folks have the immunization rate up to 98%. And beyond that, then we started working with women who unfortunately give birth, not unfortunately give birth, but die before they really complete birth, or their children die shortly after. So we've been working on helping to reduce the mortality rate. And all of that means that we have to provide support and education. Starting in 1985, I believe, we started giving scholarships to young girls. And then we started developing a vocational program. And that vocational program was first for women, and then we realized, my husband said, you have all of these smart women, and there are too many males out who don't have the same advantage, and so these girls will be marrying men who are not educated. So we brought men into the program, basically because we realized that there were too many young people who were orphans. And during this time when HIV/AIDS was prevalent, there were a lot of young people, not just girls, but guys, who were out there suffering and not having the support that they need. So we've gone through a long string. We've made many successes, and I really commend the women who have been the backbone behind all of our programs. We're in the process now. We've moved to Kagera region. We're in Bukoba, and we're building a pediatric ward, because when we went a few years ago, we realized that infants and their mothers were in facilities with women who had contagious diseases. And we realized that children did not have a start in life being exposed to that. So we are almost through. The hospital will be built, and if you're in Bukoba, in Kagera region, we would like for you to look for the AHEAD project. Now, I need to start back and say, we don't go to villages and tell people what they need. And this is where the people are with their understanding and with the skills and knowledge. They tell us, and we provide the support. We've taken over 250 volunteers with us, and their responsibility is to help people to understand where they are and what they need. So I challenge each one of you to go back home. If you're from Tanzania, go to the village and understand that what we need is a support mechanism to help people, encourage people, and yes, some need money for education, basic education, and that's critical. So thank you very much, Jessica, for all that you folks have done and all that you will continue to do, and for all of you who are here to support her efforts. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Ms. Felicia Asongwe.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is my first time being here, and when Mrs. Mushala called me to talk about violence against women by women, it gave me a challenging thought. That when I begin to imagine violence against women by women, I said, but violence is usually perpetrated by men against women. So what is this violence against women by women is? So I begin to look at, even coming up, looking at the definition, one of the definitions that the United World Health Organization wrote about the definition of violence against women. It says, violence against women is any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private. So when I look at that, that definition, I look at how a woman can also perpetrate violence against another woman. And just like our sister Aunt has just said, that training begins at the home, where a mother is supposed to train and educate the children. But coming out from a background in Africa, I realize and see that our mothers were less educated, but they have one gift that God gave them, the gift of humility, submitting themselves to their husband. So they lack that ability sometimes to educate, to empower their own children. They always see that the men the men are always at the top, and the girls are less privileged. Just like in my own family, one of my uncles thought that training a girl is a waste of time, that a girl is not supposed to go to school. And when I look at it, and there are so many practices and so many cultures that they practice, which are really, that has really affected the upbringing of young girls or women in our society today. One of the things, the violence that I saw that was being perpetrated by a woman against a woman, is this culture of genital mutilation. It has affected a lot of girls, a lot of women growing up. It has not only affected them mentally, psychologically, physically, but it has affected even their spiritual upbringing, that they don't even know who they are any longer. And this genital mutilation, you are forced, you are not even allowed, but you are forced. And when you look at the environment when these things are being done, they are inhygienic. The mother has to tell the daughter, oh, you have to do it. If you don't do it, you are not going to be recognized as a woman in the society. And some of these things, when they are done, what does it do to our young girls? What does it do to the women when they grow up? Some are infected during the process of the mutilation. Some can no longer bear children, and this affects them. Because some think that they are worthless, they don't mean anything. They allow themselves to be abused also by men. But when you begin to look at the other part, even growing up, a mother will want to abuse her own daughter. How? Growing up, like in some parts in Cameroon, when you are growing up like a teenager and your breast starts shooting out, the mother will say, hey, I don't want men to go after you. I don't want men to think that you are already ready for marriage. And what do? They use iron to press the breasts. This is a very violent act. And why? Because they didn't know any better. Some were not educated. They think that when your breast is coming out, men will start going after you, or you begin to become attractive to men. Why? They had that mentality behind them that, oh no, I don't want my daughter to develop breast. I want my daughter to grow up. If I am struggling in the farm to get money to educate her, I want her to pursue her education. But these are some of the things that have affected some of us Africans. Not only that, when those that come from Africa or that have a little education, what do? They go get the young girls from the village, and they bring them, tell them all sorts of lies, promising them heaven and earth, that when they bring them overseas, they are going to have better life. What do? They come and enslave them and send them out for prostitution. And that, I say, is violence being perpetrated against women. Violence against women perpetrated by women. And it is going on in our society today. And it has caused a lot of us, even in our society, many people, you go to majority of the hospitals today, when patients walk in, they walk out, especially women. They have medication, they are put on medication for depression. They are being depressed. Some because they are sold out for prostitution by another fellow woman, they end up having HIV. And this has a lot of cost effect in our society and even their health. So how can we educate our women? How can we go back to the village and tell those mothers, tell those sisters that are growing up, that when you see your daughter growing up, when the breast is coming out, you don't need to put an iron on it. That culture of genital mutilation needs to stop. It is still being practiced today in part of Cameroon, in part of Nigeria, and some other African countries. How are we going to put a stop to it? By educating them. Educating, coming together like this as we are here together, acquiring the knowledge and going back to educate them. And that they shouldn't even listen to all those other people who come and tell them, promising them heaven and earth, taking their children. You know, this time, voluntarily, they give out their children to be sold out in slavery. And we see so many things, so many of our girls out there working as housemaid, don't even have money to go out to buy stuff for themselves. They are being deprived of all the basic necessity in life. They are house girls, sometimes housewives, sometimes they force them into marriage, early marriage. And this, they feel worthless. But thank God that there is a reawakening, that which God created us to be right from the beginning of Genesis, that we are also equal to men. Not only equal to men, we are also equal to others. And I see that we have to take responsibility. It's high time we start holding ourselves accountable and responsible in order to deal with these issues in our society. Thank you.
And Jessica, help me if I don't get this right. Our next speaker is Mrs. Rukia Malapula.
Okay, I'm going to add to that. Rukia Malipula Mfinanga. So more. So to make it just longer. So anyway, my name is Rukia. Call me Rukia. So I'm a senior program manager for Big Brother Big Sisters. And the reason I say that is my topic is connected to my position at Big Brother Big Sisters. So it was like about eight years ago, I went back to grad school, and I was supposed to do internship, and somehow they placed me at Big Brother Big Sisters of National Capital Area, where I started working with. My boss was Miss Denise Williams. She was my director program. So the second semester of my grad school, I was hired by a fellow female, which I'm so happy and honored. I'll always be grateful to her for that. However, that was just part of my story because I realized I never thought I could be a social worker, although my degree was in business. But then quickly I became a social worker. So I work with the very high risk students in Washington, D.C. And part of that, I've learned a lot of these children, they have a lot of issues, and mostly because their mothers, they are subjecting themselves to a lot of violence. And when Jessica said this is going to be the topic, I was also like Felicia, I was confused. I was like, violence against women? I was like, okay. I did not know what to start, but then I figured I'm going to somehow put it in everything together, somewhat to make sense. My only topic here, my encourage to you is every woman who is here, I want you guys to become mentors. I want you to mentor a fellow woman. I want to mentor a child, because from my job I do, mentoring does work. Does work plenty. I've seen miracles from the children who were on statistics to die, to be shot at, to drop out of school. The minute you identify this child is at high risk, you identify another male or another female who is going to be a role model, a mentor in their lives, and quickly their life change like 360 degrees. So a little bit of my story about violence, I'm going to make it personal. When I was 7 years old, I was at my aunt's house, and my neighbor, so I went to play to the neighbor's house, and I was raped at a very young age. And my parents, who were well-to-do, They did everything for me to forget. I never forgot. And each time I try to talk about it, they'll be like, oh, don't worry, it never happened. Well, finally, they came to accept that it did happen. So what I wanted to say, so one day I went to church and I was like, I've been holding this on my back for like 40 years. It's time for me to let the person who hurt me and forgive him. So I went to church in front of like 50 people. I said, I've been holding this secret for so many years, and today I'm going to take my life back, and I'm going to forgive this person. And not because I want him to have a daily life or whatever, but I just want to take my life, and I'm going to use my experience to speak. Speak up, women. If you know somebody's gonna being abused, don't go call another person and say, oh yeah, she was molested. No, you get her help, and very quickly so. If you hear somebody has a lot of story about she's being abused by her father or her mother or her boyfriend, you give her the resources. You say, you know what, you can go to this, whatever there are so many resources, especially here in Washington, D.C. And even if in Tanzania, you tell them to leave this husband, she will do just fine by themselves instead of being subjecting themselves to torture or violence that is directed to them or to their children. So what I'm telling you is we can make a difference. I'm so happy you talk about Me Too movement. I was so happy when this Me Too movement, I was like, oh, so Rukia is not alone. Oh, power to us. But what surprised me when I went to church that day, the pastor's wife came to me and whispered to me and said, Rukia, this happened to me. And all along I was going to that church, I could see her there, and I was like, well, I wish my life was so perfect like her. I felt so bad. That's the time I say, you know what, I'm not going to be hypocrite anymore. I am not. I refuse to be hypocrite, because that woman was sitting there and said, you know what, since I was the age of 12 until the age of 18, my own brother was sexually molesting me. You are a pastor's wife. I stood there. It took me a lot of guts after all this year to stand there and say that somebody, did this to me. People listen to you. You should speak up. Instead, you come to me in my ears when I was out of church and tell me that, oh, this is the same thing happened to me. So women, it's time for you to speak up. And I mean speak up. Join the movement. And if you know somebody is being molested, is being hurt, speak up. Speak up on behalf. Become a mentor to a woman. Become a mentor to a child. Mentoring do work. It's time for us to end all kind of violence to our girls, our women. I had a little story last week at my job where one of the mothers, the social worker went to her house because the child is 13. She has a baby. The baby is 13. According to the mother, this girl was pregnated by another boy who is 13. We don't know that story yet, who is telling the truth. However, so there was violence like a week later. And then the police came, and then the mother has 9 kids. And the police said, this man in your house, your boyfriend, cannot be in this house because he's beating up these other girls. So you know what mother chose? Mother chose the boyfriend over the 2 girls who were reported. So the 2 girls were removed and they were placed under foster home. And the mother chose the boyfriend who is beating up on her kids, but because she said she doesn't have anywhere to go. So all we can do here as a family, as you can say that, you can tell them you can have a family shelter. You can go under the bridge. I would rather be under the bridge with my kids than being with a man who is molesting me or abusing my children. So we can do something. We can do. You can mentor a child. You can talk to them. You can provide financial, emotional support. It doesn't have to be financial. You can just to talk to somebody is a lot. It makes a lot of difference. And I will tell you how I went to that church and I said that I'm going to take my life back. Because a day before I was at my office and a girl, I was supervising this intern from University of Maryland, and she said there she hates her father. And then she started to tell me that how when she lived in Jamaica, she used to go to to the guy used to tutor them, her and her sister, and they started the teacher started molesting those two girls from the age of 8 to the age of 12. And each time they tried to talk their father said, "Oh, be quiet. You are trying to to mess up this guy's respect." And the guy, of course, had so much power. So I stood there, and that girl, she was like 19 or 20 years old. She was crying so hard how much she hates her father. And I did not say anything. I did not say, I said, so sorry that happened to you, but you see, this is your father. You don't need to talk to. But I said there as if my life was perfect, which was not. So eventually, I felt so bad, and that's how I say, you know what? I'm going to take my life back. I'm going to be speaking up. I will not be ashamed. The person who had me at the age of 7, I did not do that to myself. He did it because he was evil. We need to stop these people from being evil. Thank you very much. Become a mentor, and we'll see.
Wow, thank you. Okay, and our final speaker for today is Mrs. Olivia Stallings. Oh, there, okay.
Okay, that's Miss. I work hard for that. No, I'm very grateful to be around, just in the presence of everyone here, listening to the stories and hearing from various women of how we can empower one another. The whole topic, women violence against women, I didn't struggle with that at all. I mean, as soon as she said that to me, I thought of several ways that women are violent towards each other. Violence is not something that is always something that physically happens to you. Violence can be something that can emotionally impact you in a violent way, that can destroy something about your spirit. Abuse is abuse, and a lot of people that have experienced abuse, whether it be physical or emotional, those that have experienced emotional abuse will tell you they'd rather be punched in the face. I mean, emotional abuse is a very big thing, and that is something that Black women especially do to one another all the time. You know, your hair is not the right texture, or your nose is a little thicker than another woman's, or you don't walk a certain way, or your behind is the one that God gave you is too big. Cover that more. It's not covered enough. I've seen it in church. I've seen it in school settings. We don't need anyone to be violent towards us. We do it so much. Black women and African women, that fight always confused me. We really look the same. We really are the same. It's just the matter of where the boat dropped you off at. I mean, or if the boat picked you up. So, right, we're very much connected. There's no reason for me to look at another beautiful sister and feel anything but she's a beautiful sister. I make it a point to tell a woman she's beautiful on a daily basis. I don't do it so much in Atlanta for various reasons, but you know, I can do it here in DC and some other places I go, but I make it a point to say, I like your shoes, or I like your dress, or that color lipstick is beautiful. And I've done that for a long time, because I'm not someone that always liked women. My story's a little different in the sense of I was molested by a woman. People think that only happens by a guy. I just happened to be a girl that was molested by a woman, and then later raped by 2 men. And the interesting part is the damage that's done. A lot of people don't talk about women raping, but I know a lot of men that have been raped by their sitters, their aunts, their mother's friends, and what that does to a female. I spent a lot of time not liking women. Most of my adolescence, I didn't want to be near them. I was a tomboy. I played with the guys. I didn't want to be anywhere near a woman, especially a Black woman. And there was nothing in me that wanted to sit near one or be around one or communicate with one, because I associated that with pain, trauma. Childhood trauma and adult trauma is a little different. And I can say that because I've experienced trauma through variations of my life. But what I will say is women being violent towards one another has been going on for centuries. This is nothing new. Get married and let your best friend not be married. And Complain about your husband to your best friend and figure out a couple of keywords that she might say, like leave him. Why? Because she wants him. Or, you know, I'm serious. Women do some things to one another that's completely unnecessary. It's hard enough to get a guy, yet we're steady chasing after someone else's. We talk about each other's looks, appearances, what people, how we respond to one another, how we embrace one another. When I told my mother that I was molested, but I was being physically assaulted, and this lasted for years. My earliest memory was at the age of 4. And this lasted up until the age of 8 or 9. And I have selective memory, I guess, when it comes to it. But when a child is molested, they're not sure whether to enjoy that or to hate that. Their innocence is at play now, you know, because especially if it's a family member or someone close to you, and mine happened to be a family member. And I didn't understand it. And I think from that perspective, I was not sure how to really address the situation, but I've never been shy. So I told my mom, you know, this is what happened. My mom told my dad. They spoke about it, and no one ever mentioned it again. So every time we got together for family dinner, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever it was, they knew not to invite me. Because the first thing I would stand up, and before we said our prayers, I'd say, she molested me for 4 years. And I would do that. Your voice is powerful. Your voice is powerful in a way that you have no idea, to never let anyone strip that from you. She was never able to shut me up. I said this to her up until we were in our 30s. And then she came to me and said it was done to her, and she did it to me. And a lot of times that's how it works. Hurt people hurt people. But as women, we have so much. I have this philosophy. I have 3 sons, and I'm a single mom to 3 boys. And I spent a lot of time trying not to demasculate them, you know, yell at them, get them used to black women yelling in their face all the time. I don't think that's something our boys should experience, or calling them outside of their name and, you know, just putting them down in any kind of way. So I'm really mindful of that mindset. And I have all these sons. And I think about the type of women that they might bring around and things of that nature, and how they view women. And I constantly make sure that my sons view women as very delicate creatures. Although when someone views me, they say, oh, you're so strong. And I almost get offended. The strength that a woman carries is not necessarily by choice. It's because we have no choice. If we don't stay strong, everything around us will fall apart, including our household and our husbands and our children. We have no choice but to stay strong. And the best way to empower another woman is by letting her know that it's not in her strength that makes her beautiful, but it's just her in her spirit that makes her beautiful. Who she is as a woman is what you're acknowledging. You're not acknowledging anything that, you know, I remember when I used to go see my aunts. Last year I was 180 pounds. I was telling somebody, I go up and down, and I have moments of I want cake and I don't want cake. But every time I would see my aunts, you know, they're very heavy women. They would always say, are you sick? Every time I would start losing weight, are you sick? Are you, what's wrong with you? Do you have cancer? And I cut my hair, so that made it worse. And they was like, oh my gosh, are you sick? And we are not mindful of how we talk to each other. We don't encourage each other in our paths and our things. If you're not thick enough, if you're not slim enough, if you're not tall enough, if you're not short enough, we put more pressure on ourselves than men put on us. We literally dress for one another. I don't want nobody wearing this outfit. I want to make sure I look better than her, or whatever. But we really attacked each other. There are so many variations of violence from women against other women. It's crazy. But I did want to mention, while I was standing here, a couple of things that really stood out to me while I was sitting here listening to these ladies' stories. Each one of y'all inspired me to kind of look up some information and just kind of write stuff down. So I was listening to you. I wasn't ignoring anything. But I enjoyed this statistic, because they was speaking on rural women, and I have no concept of what that is. You know, I know what it's like to be a single mother. I know what it's like to be a woman 15 years old by yourself. You know, I moved out at 15. I never went back home. I know what that looks like. I know what it's like to not have a father or a father or a mother, strong leader, role model, and you trying to figure out how to be a woman and how to conduct yourself. But the rural thing, I really don't know much about, because these women have to be creative in their own way. Their intelligence comes from having to make things that come convenient to us. But every 98 seconds, someone in the U.S. is sexually assaulted. That's 570 people experience sexual violence in this country. 570 every 98 seconds. That's from 2007 report. I mean, think about this. And I mean, really think about what our culture has become. Why is it this way? When you turn on the TV, you can't, I don't watch TV. I haven't watched TV in 9 years. That is my confession. I don't watch television, but when you do, all you see is TNA. You don't see anything else. Every movie, every song, you can't turn on the radio. You can't do anything without somebody saying how unimportant a woman's body is. Really. You know, if it ain't fat, if it ain't light, if it ain't bright, if it ain't this, if it ain't that, if it don't shake it, if it don't drop, if it don't, you know, everything is a woman around her body. Nothing about her mind, her dreams, her soul, what she wants. Look at the makeup commercials. Look at how society perpetrates women. And then we wonder why 570 people a day are going through sexual assault experiences. And this is not just women. This is men too. And then you have 1 out of 13 people in this area who are affected with HIV and AIDS. That's from 2017. So these are not old things that I was digging up or sitting here thinking about, but these are ways where other women can start to empower other women. Please protect yourself. See, when I went to a club, I don't go often, but I went a month ago. Those women, I was counting. I used my stopwatch on my phone. It became a joke between my girlfriend, but it wasn't funny. If I didn't come across some of the women that I have met in my life, I would have been a completely different woman. A completely different woman. I had women pull me aside and say, no, honey, you're too bright for that. No, don't be that way. No, don't think that way. And in my early 20s, to overcome all of the damage that was done by women, I purposely started a ladies' night in at my house. It grew from 20 to 50 women every year. And it was different cultures of women, and I would literally just booze, alcohol, and food and music. And I just wanted to see what that looked like. Like, can this happen every year for several hours where women are just enjoying each other's company socially, and there be no fight, there be no, no cattiness. Every year it was a beautiful experience. And this opened up my heart to women in general, realizing that we're much more alike than we try to dissociate ourselves with. We really do share some of the same things. I'm 40 this year, and I'm experiencing early menopause, unfortunately. But some other woman is going through menopause too. She's having hot flashes too. Let's be kinder to one another. You don't know why this woman's wearing a weave, or why this woman prefers her hair natural, or why this woman prefers to wear hijab. Whatever it is that a woman preference, let her be comfortable in her skin. But we have to do better, because in this area, it's our girls that have AIDS. In this area, it's our girls that are literally dying. A lot of these men are with other men. They're not down low. They're completely not in DC. You can't be down low in DC. Everybody knows your business here. So in this area, they're out there, and women don't care. The one that you were saying where women pull men into their home. I've been raising my kids for 21 years, and I've never had a man live with me. I never lived with a man. I'm not proud of this, but my reasoning, I know I would go to jail if I even think you touched my son. So I know what my background is. I know where I come from, so I eliminate unnecessaries in my life until I could. But these women out here, a lot of them, they get lonely. Think of your single mothers. That's the loneliest job on the planet. You got little people you can't even talk to, really, not like you would an adult. Don't judge a woman that had 3, 4, 5 babies. You don't know where she came from. You don't know her story. So before you look at some woman and have a moment with, oh, I think I know where she is, or she looking like a thought, or whatever we want to call these women, stop and take a moment and tell her how beautiful she is. Tell her how strong she is, because if I didn't have women like that, I wouldn't be the woman that I am now. And let them know that they don't need a man. I was talking about that earlier. I love men. So I will definitely put that out there. I do absolutely love men. I would love to have one at some point in my life. However, I know I don't need one. I started doing financial management at a really young age, and I've been running a company for a long time. I started in my early 20s. And I started it not because I thought I could be really good with money. I was good with numbers always. But I started it because I wanted to know how to structure my household, where if there was no child support coming through, and if everybody on the planet that I loved and knew passed away or dropped off the face of the earth, can I feed my own children? And that right there is empowering for a woman within itself. If she can take care of herself, she won't feel inclined to move in people into her home or deal with situations that she doesn't need to. I just hope that everybody got something from this and really go out there and just talk to your girls. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to piggyback on that. That as okay, you may have noticed I'm a white woman. Kind of it makes me a minority here. But often, Jessica, one of the things we do is we talk about a lot of the cultural differences between Tanzanian Americans, African Americans, and the white American culture, which is actually a bunch of subcultures put together too. That last part. So even as an educated white American woman, what I find, and I see it over and over in my clients, I'm a coach, is that we are still teaching our sons that they have to be able to support a family, and we're teaching our daughters that they have to be able to support themselves. We're not, so as our young boys are growing up, they're feeling all the pressure to earn enough income to support a family, where our young women have pressure on them to be able to support themselves. And then we wonder why women still earn 70-some cents on a dollar to every man, other than the fact that most women are the caretakers for the children and the elderly, etc. But a part of it is that cultural thing that we do as mothers, where we're teaching our young girls to support themselves and still teaching our young boys to support a family. So just something to think about. The other thing I want to take from Olivia today is that the idea of acknowledgement. When you acknowledge someone, you are acknowledging them for who they are, the positive things about them, which is not quite the same as a compliment, right? A compliment it doesn't have to really go to the core of who a person is, right? I can just say, oh, your purse is really nice. That's a compliment. If I say, wow, you have excellent taste in purses, that's beautiful. That's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement of who you are. And so we have dinner here today, and I challenge, we have another, Amos. Okay. But my challenge for you is, as we eat our meal, take time to talk to the women around you and just try to acknowledge them for who they are. Build your skill of making acknowledgments to people and raising them up in a way that says, I acknowledge you for who you authentically are, and I want to honor it. Okay, and Jessica said that Amos has, I don't know whether it's instructions or a prayer or both for dinner. Mr. Amos Mushala.
How are you, young ladies? You all look beautiful today. Let me give you a compliment on that. Give yourself a hand of applause for making this short moment of getting together and exposing and talking about your concerns. Some of us guys who are out here, we might take it for granted, but you are the backbone of the family. Even though, as Mom said, we're the head, but then the head can't go anywhere without the neck instructing it where to go. So as the wife told me to go this way, but I wanted to acknowledge that you are. Once you say it, make sure you say it and mean it. At the same time, be aggressive enough to make sure that they hear it. Because some of these men here, they're knuckleheads, sorry to say. Me, I can behave, but I've seen it. sometimes it hurts me when I see such thing. Right now, where I'm just coming from, unfortunately, elderly ladies or wherever you're going, be careful. Elderly lady just coming from Giant, not 2 hours ago, just going to her car. She was ran over by a car. I mean, that just blew my mind. Elderly lady just went to get something in Giant, going back to her car, was ran over. Just be careful. Your surroundings. Life is too short. As he said, compliment each other. Don't do all this hairstyle. Oh, your hair ain't beautiful as mine, but compliment each other. I think it will go a long way. And on that note, it's not dinner, it's a little, yes.
We actually had one more speaker show up.
Oh, let me go back down and I'll come back again.
Okay, we have one more short speaker before our meal. And I'd like to call up Ms. Tony Francis.
Yeah. So I'm not a really good speaker, but I'm sorry. But I was just piggybacking on what you ladies were saying. I grew up in California. I had a mom and a dad. I'm a little emotional, but probably no one knows this. But my father sexually abused me and my sister. But you know, all through my life, this happened. No, I'm fine. But I've learned to live with it. I've forgiven him. And the one thing that made me a little stronger than my sister, who was older than me, is that I think he got farther with her than me because I was just not gonna have it. So I think one day I knew my father's gun is. I took it to my head. I told my mother, I'm gonna kill myself. I'm done. And my mother never believed me. She never believed us. And so that was the day that I empowered myself. That day that I took the gun to my head, and then she confronted my father again, and he said, I didn't do anything. And I ran out of the house. I ran, and I ran, and I ran, and I ran. And I found someone whose door was open. And I ran to their kitchen table, and I hid until I found my mother driving around with the van. And I ran in the van, and I said, I'm not going back there, Mom. Nope. This is hell. I'm done. I couldn't concentrate in school. I couldn't focus. I was an A student, became a very bad student. But I empowered myself that day. My mother had 5 sisters, and all of them would have taken me. They were all very well-to-do. They had houses, and we moved in with one of our sisters. My mother, she was a financial manager, made a lot of money. So finances were not the problem. She just didn't get it, you know. So when we stayed with my aunt until, you know, me and my sister, we lived a good life after that, you know. Moved on and went to school, and I'd always said, I'm gonna leave LA. And nobody knew why, but I had to break myself from that place to probably to grow, because I was stuck. I was stuck. My father's always calling me, and he was kind of probably schizophrenic. He would call, stay on the phone for hours and hours with you, talking about nothing that happened to us, but just talking, and just, I had to get away. I used to say, I'm gonna get away from you. Somehow I'm gonna get away from you, and I did. And I met my husband, and he was just a loving person who, you know, just embraced me, and the Ugandan community embraced me, and no questions asked. You know, I was probably an angry person and very shy, never really dated or nothing, because my father would just take his gun and stand outside on the porch if somebody came along, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to say that you know, you guys encouraged me to talk, and I have talked about this. I had speech classes in college, and I probably, you know, released that. But I think my sister, she, you know, had more problems, but that empowerment of telling someone got me through. And I forgave him. You know, I didn't talk to him for like 2 years. And I forgave him. He refused to let me call my mother when I left. When I called, he would pick up the phone and said, "You're an adult now, so you're not getting any money." So I said, "Okay, no problem, I got this." My mother used to say, "Why didn't you call me?" I say, "No, not gonna worry about it, you know. It's okay, Mom, you know." But she still never accepted it, which was fine because I moved forward and I have forgiven him, and thank God I did forgive him. I forgave him with all my soul. My father came to visit me, we had fun, he just recently died, and he asked me, he said, "You know, you're such a kind person. Like, you're cleaning up my poop, you're, you know, changing my diaper, you're doing this." I said, "You know, it's never been about that. I'm your daughter, and I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna be the best daughter I can be. It's nothing to do with you." And he said, "You know, you're an angel." But anyway, I don't want to get emotional again, but I just thank you for listening, and I can understand. I think probably everybody I know has been sexually molested, all the ladies I know, so it is kind of crazy. So I don't feel like I'm alone, which is not good, but, you know, it makes you think that, you know, the world is just not perfect, and it would be nice if it was, and, you know. Anyway, thank you.
We're calling Amos Mushala back.
Can I say something? Just one thing. Forgiveness is not for him who hurt you. Forgiveness is for you so that he can take your power back. So don't feel bad you forgave him. Forgiveness is for you to move on, not for him, but it's for you to move on. That's all I wanted to say.
Mr. Polgar and the video man, thank you for being here too, supporting our ladies. Now it's not over right now. Oh, and our security man, thank you for being here. So on that aspect, I think it was an introduction because we had thought about doing the adulthood, which kept changing. Now we're doing this, and it's an introduction, meaning we'd like to piggyback on this and continue it, at least to be able to reach out and help those who need help. This is only the beginning. So on that note, can we all stand? We have a word of prayer. It's a snack. It's not all dinner now. It's just a snack. So, since we have a pastor here, I would like for her to come in and give us a word, and then we'll pray for a little thing. Yes, you. I know you are. Karibu, ma'am. Yeah, not wow. Yes. So we're being blessed.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody to be here. Thank you for everybody who's here. Thank you for testimony. You encourage us. We learn a lot. And we're going to take another step now to do what we're supposed to do as a woman, which is backbone in the family. So don't worry. You are not alone. We are together. Thank you, and let's pray so we can be blessed for what we have for today. Father, we thank you for everything. We thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for every woman who's here, Father. Thank you for your message. Thank you for reminding us. Thank you for encouraging us, because we know we are not alone. You are with us. Now I ask you, Father, to bless our drink and food and snack. And when we're going to eat and drink, we can have energy to think and to work with you until eternity. In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody say amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So therefore, you're free to get something to eat and come back and mingle and get to know each other much better. Asante sana kwa kila mtu.